You smell smoke before you even see the fires. Not the cozy campfire kind. This is the acrid, throat-burning stench of entire cities collapsing into ash. You're standing on the edge of what used to be a bustling marketplace, and the ground is so hot your sandals feel like they're cooking your feet. Somewhere under all that dust and rubble, there's a bakery you remember. Now it's just a pile of bricks with a charred loaf sticking out like some sick joke. And then you hear it, that low, rhythmic thud. Not drums, hooves. Thousands of them. The Mongols are here. Now, before we get to the part where you're probably dead, let's talk about the man who sent them. Because this isn't just some warlord passing through, this is the guy who's about to rewire the map of the known world like it's a piece of paper he doesn't like. His name? Temujin. But history remembers him as Genghis Khan. And in the next 20 years, this man is going to rip through continents like a plague with a sword. You've probably heard of him. Big empire, horseback archers, yada yada. But what they don't tell you is just how insane this gets. We're talking about a man who thought mercy was something you showed after you burned an entire city to the ground if you were feeling generous, which he rarely was. The first time people really started whispering his name in terror, it wasn't because he won some glorious, honorable battle. It was because of what happened after. Picture this, a city falls. The gates are splintered, the soldiers are cut down, and the streets are piled with the dead. You think the killing's over? Oh no. This is where it gets creative. He'd have molten silver or lead poured into the eyes and ears of captured leaders, because apparently beheading was too quick, too clean. The poor? Straight decapitation. The rich? Tortured until they coughed up every last coin. And if you were a woman? Let's just say your nightmare was only beginning, often in front of your family. Still with me? Good, because this isn't even close to the worst part. Genghis didn't just destroy cities, he erased them. Like dig up the foundation so no one can even rebuild, erased. One massacre? 700,000 people. Let that number marinate in your brain for a second. That's an entire modern city wiped clean off the earth. No survivors, just ash, bones, and silence. And if his men ran out of water in the middle of a campaign? No problem. They'd slice open a horse's vein and drink the blood. Not kill the horse, just keep it going like some kind of walking canteen. Yeah, try on seeing that mental image. He was the kind of guy who'd use people as human shields, sending them in front of his army so enemy archers had to shoot through their own families. And here's the thing, if you were loyal to him, you might live to see another day. But betray him? Even once? You're done. But where does someone like this come from? Well, this monster of a man didn't exactly grow up in luxury. Born around 1162, somewhere in the unforgiving Mongolian steppes, he was no stranger to survival. His father was poisoned when he was a kid, leaving his family outcast, starving, and desperate. You'd think that would make someone more compassionate, right? It just made him harder, sharper, like a blade that's been ground down to nothing but an edge. And when I say ruthless, I mean it started early. He was 13 when he killed his own brother, over a fish. Yeah, not an empire, not a betrayal, a fish. That should have been the first clue this guy wasn't wired like the rest of us. So here you are, standing in the smoking remains of your city, watching the horizon go dark with dust as thousands of riders approach. They're fast, they're disciplined, and they're not here to negotiate. Somewhere among them is a man whose idea of the greatest happiness is, in his own words, to scatter your enemy, drive him before you, see his cities reduced to ashes, see those who love him shrouded in tears, and to gather into your bosom his wives and daughters. Nice guy, huh? You tighten your grip on whatever weapon you've got left. You know it won't make a difference. These are men who fought in blizzards, deserts, and mountains. Men who can hit a bird in flight from horseback while riding at full speed. And somewhere in that sea of armor and dust is the Khan himself, the man who's about to kill 3/4 of the Iranian plateau and not lose a single night's sleep over it. The ground shakes. The hoofbeats get louder. And you realize something terrible. This isn't just another raid. This is the beginning of the end for everything you've ever known. You're about to find out exactly how Genghis Khan became the most feared name on Earth, and why his enemies learned that death wasn't always the worst thing he could give you. And trust me, what's coming next? You're not ready for it. The dust cloud is closer now. You can see shapes inside it, a blur of movement, flashes of steel, the glint of sunlight off arrowheads. You're still gripping your weapon, but deep down you know the truth. You could be holding a spear, a sword, or a dragon-breathing flamethrower, and it still wouldn't matter. Because these aren't just horsemen. These are Mongols. And Mongols don't fight fair. They fight smart. They fight like they've been planning your death since before you were born. Have you ever seen an army move like water? That's what it's like watching them spread across the plain. No rigid formation, no clumsy marching. They flow. They split apart and merge again, faster than your eyes can follow. And the next thing you know, they've surrounded you without ever firing a shot. And here's the scary part. This isn't luck. This is design. Genghis built this war machine piece by piece, like a craftsman with a particularly violent hobby. He didn't just want warriors, he wanted predators. He broke his army into small, fast-moving units called Tumans, each about 10,000 men. But within those, he had squads of 100, 10, even just 5 riders who could act completely independently if they had to. Imagine trying to fight a cloud of bees that can each make their own decisions. Yeah, good luck with that. And it wasn't just numbers, it was discipline. These men could ride for days without stopping, eating in the saddle, sleeping in the saddle, hell, probably doing everything in the saddle. They could shoot an arrow while galloping full speed, backwards. Ever tried to walk backwards without tripping? Now try it on a horse while shooting something the size of your hand at 200 meters. Oh, and remember that bit about water being optional? Yeah, they'd drink horse blood, choke down dried meat softened in their mouths, and keep moving. No supply wagons, no kitchen tents, no massive baggage train slowing them down. You couldn't starve them, and you couldn't outrun them. Then there was the mind game. Genghis was a master of psychological warfare. Sometimes he wouldn't even have to fight to win. He'd send scouts ahead, let the enemy see them, then disappear. A few days later, a bigger group would show up. Then, an even bigger one. By the time the real army arrived, the defenders were already convinced they were hopelessly outnumbered. And honestly, they probably were. Other times, he'd stage a retreat. The Mongols would pretend to panic, turn tail, and run. And the defending army, thinking they'd won, would chase after them in a messy, disorganized mob. That's when the trap would snap shut. The fleeing riders would wheel around, the hidden flanks would appear, and suddenly the hunters were the hunted. It was chess, but every piece was a knight, and every move ended with you bleeding out on the ground. And here's where it gets even darker. Genghis didn't just fight with soldiers. He fought with reputation. The Mongols would hit one city with unimaginable brutality. Slaughter everyone, burn everything, leave nothing but corpses and smoke, and then stop. Let the news spread. By the time they showed up at the next city, the defenders already knew the stories. They'd seen the refugees, heard the whispers, molten metal, women taken, children enslaved, and suddenly surrender looked like a much better option. This wasn't random cruelty. It was marketing. Fear was his brand. And business was booming. Now, remember, this wasn't some empire that took centuries to grow. From the moment Genghis united the Mongol tribes in 1206, it took him less than 20 years to carve out the largest contiguous empire in history. And it wasn't just the land between Mongolia and China. Oh no. He pushed west, smashing through Central Asia, rolling over Persia, and peering hungrily at the Middle East and Europe like a man eyeing the last slice of pizza. The Caspian Sea? He reached it. The Great Wall of China? He went right through it. And every time a city resisted, the ground drank blood until it couldn't anymore. You'd think someone like this would burn out quickly, that an empire built on terror would crumble the moment the terror faded. But here's the thing. Genghis didn't just destroy, he rebuilt. Once a city surrendered, he often spared it, not out of kindness, but because it was now his. Merchants got protection, trade routes flourished, and the empire became this massive, humming machine of conquest and commerce. Silk, spices, gold, it all flowed through Mongol hands. And if you stayed loyal, you might actually thrive under his rule. That's the thing about Genghis. He could be the worst monster you've ever seen, or the most pragmatic ruler you could ask for. Which side you got depended entirely on whether you bowed before he knocked your door down. But back to you. You're standing there watching this wave of death get closer, and you have a choice: fight or surrender. If you fight, maybe you take one of them with you. Maybe. But you'll probably end up in a pile with everyone else. Your home burned, your family. Well, you've heard what happens. If you surrender, you might live. You might even keep your city. But you'll be part of the Mongol Empire now, and the Khan doesn't share power. You think about it, watching those riders form a perfect, shifting wall of horseflesh and steel. And then you see it, a banner, black against the sun, the symbol of Genghis Khan himself. And that's when it hits you. You're not just facing an army. You're facing the will of one man, and the will of this man doesn't bend. It only breaks. What happens when you tell a man like this? You're about to find out. You know that feeling when you see a storm rolling in, black clouds swallowing the horizon, air thick enough to choke on, and you know it's about to hit, but there's nothing you can do? That's what it was like when word spread. The Khan is coming, and every city had a choice. Bow or burn. Some bowed, some burned, some, well, they thought they could outsmart him. That was cute. It's the year 1221. Genghis has sent his favorite son-in-law, a guy named Conqueror, to deal with Nishapur, a wealthy Persian city. Things are going smoothly, until an arrow takes Conqueror down, dead. Now, here's a pro tip. If you ever accidentally kill Genghis Khan's son-in-law, don't be in the same postal code when he hears about it. His daughter, who just became a widow, sends a message to Daddy. It's short, and I'm paraphrasing here: level the city, kill them all. Genghis doesn't hesitate. He hands the task to his top general, who surrounds Nishapur. Walls crumble, gates splinter, and then the slaughter begins. Not just soldiers, not just men, women, children, pets. If it breathed, it died. The bodies were piled so high the streets looked like valleys between hills of corpses. And when they ran out of room, they built pyramids of skulls outside the city walls. Have you ever seen a pyramid? Majestic, right? Now picture it made of human heads and try to sleep tonight. Then there's Urgench. This wasn't some dusty backwater. This was a jewel of the Khwarezmian Empire. Rich, powerful, beautiful, which made it even sweeter to destroy. The Mongols laid siege, and the fighting was fierce. Genghis's generals lost men. Horses died. The Khan was not amused. When Urgench finally fell, the order was simple: empty it. The killing went on for days. They say so many people died that the Amu Darya River ran red. Some sources claim 1 million dead in that one massacre alone. And here's the kicker: Genghis didn't just kill. He enslaved the survivors, ripped apart families, and carted off artisans to work for him. You're too valuable to kill? Congrats. You now belong to the Khan. If Urgench was bad, Merv was something else. They called it the jewel of the world. Lush gardens, sparkling mosques, libraries full of centuries-old knowledge. In 1221, Genghis showed up. The city surrendered without a fight. Good call, right? Wrong. They opened the gates. The Mongols marched in. And then Genghis gave the order: kill them anyway. Every man, woman, and child gone. Some chroniclers say 1.3 million dead. It's probably an exaggeration, but even if it's half that, we're talking about one of the deadliest massacres in human history. And here's where you realize something about Genghis Khan. Surrender didn't guarantee mercy. It guaranteed opportunity. If he thought killing you would send a stronger message than sparing you, goodbye. It's tempting to see him as a pure sadist. And yeah, okay, molten silver in the eyes isn't exactly a hallmark of kindness. But here's the twisted thing. He thought this was efficient. Every massacre was a warning. A billboard written in blood, "Resist, and this is your future." And it worked. Cities that heard about Merv or Nishapur often didn't bother fighting. They'd throw open their gates and beg to be spared. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But either way, Genghis got what he wanted: control without wasting arrows. Imagine the Middle Ages with no TikTok, no newspapers, no instant anything. And yet Genghis's brand was everywhere. Refugees poured into neighboring lands, carrying horror stories like plague rats. They drink horse blood. They use prisoners as human shields. They'll kill your whole city if one man insults them. And those stories? Genghis liked them. He wanted them to spread. Fear was his siege weapon. It softened cities before the first stone hit the wall. But here's the thing about terror. It's a double-edged sword. The more people feared him, the more they wanted him gone. Some kings started plotting alliances, whispering about how to trap the Mongols, cut off their supply lines, maybe even assassinate the Khan himself. And in the middle of this brewing storm, Genghis sets his sights on a new prize, one so big, so rich, that taking it would send shockwaves across half the world. The only problem? This one might actually fight back. You'd think by now the whole world would have gotten the memo. If Genghis Khan shows up, either bend the knee or start digging your own grave. But no. Some kingdoms, they think they're different. And that's how the Khwarezmian Empire became a cautionary tale. Here's the setup. Genghis Khan wants trade. Yeah, you heard me. Not war, not conquest, just business. He sends a caravan of merchants to the Khwarezmian Shah, packed with silk, spices, fine goods, a peace offering on horseback. The Shah? He decides, free loot, and has the caravan robbed, the merchants executed. Now, in a normal medieval spat, maybe you send a strongly worded letter. Maybe you skirmish at the border. Genghis? He sends 3 ambassadors to straighten things out. The Shah kills one, shaves the beards off the others, which, in Mongol culture, is basically a war crime wrapped in an insult. You can almost hear the snap as Genghis loses his last shred of patience. The Mongol army rolls west. But this isn't just an invasion, it's a surgical dismemberment of an empire. City by city, they fall. Otrar, Bokhara, Samarkand, each one a jewel of Persian culture, each one gutted. Bokhara? The Khan rides right into the mosque, looks around at the terrified congregation, and says, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Then the massacre starts. Samarkand? He uses siege towers and Chinese engineers to break the walls. Survivors are rounded up and divided like livestock, some for slavery, some for execution, some to be marched ahead as human shields to the next city. It's not just destruction. It's humiliating. The Shah runs, leaves his people to die, dies in exile, hunted like a rat, while Genghis owns everything he once ruled. With Khwarezmia shattered, the Khan's eyes roam farther. The Caucasus? Crushed. The Volga Bulgars? Flattened. The Kipchaks of the steppe? Assimilated or annihilated. He sends envoys to Europe. They return with news. Poland, Hungary, the Rus principalities, all ripe for the taking. And here's the crazy part. The Mongols actually reached Eastern Europe in his lifetime. Imagine the panic. Cities that had never even heard of the Mongols suddenly seeing their banners on the horizon. But fate has other plans. It's the year 1227. Genghis is in the middle of yet another campaign, this time against the Western Xia, a Chinese kingdom that made the mistake of refusing him troops for his war in Khwarezmia. The details of what happens next are fuzzy. Some say he fell from his horse. Others whisper about illness, even assassination. Mongol legend? It claims he was injured in battle, possibly by a princess he took captive. Whatever the truth, the result is the same. The most feared man alive is dying. But here's the thing. Genghis Khan doesn't go out like a normal ruler. His burial is shrouded in secrecy. No tomb, no monument. The funeral party supposedly killed everyone they met on the way back, so no one would know where he was buried. Legend says a river was diverted to flow over his grave. Even in death, the Khan remains untouchable. By the time he dies, his empire stretches from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, the largest contiguous land empire in history. 20 to 60 million dead, cultures erased, populations shattered, but also trade routes opened, ideas exchanged, political systems streamlined under one brutal, unyielding hand. You stand there, centuries later, thinking about it. Was he a barbarian? A genius? A monster? A necessary evil? The ground where he rode is quiet now. The dust has settled. But somewhere under those endless steps, his bones lie in darkness, and the earth above them still remembers the thunder of hooves. And here's the question that sticks in your throat. If a man like Genghis Khan rose again today, would we see him coming in time? Or would we, just like Nishapur, Urgench, Merv, and the Shah of Khwarezmia, only realize it when the sky turns black?